As we navigate the later chapters of our lives, the relationship between our bodies and the restorative power of sleep undergoes a profound and often frustrating transformation, creating a silent epidemic that affects millions of seniors worldwide who find themselves staring at the ceiling in the quiet hours of the night. Sleep is not merely a passive state of rest, but a complex, active neurobiological process that serves as the foundation for cognitive health, immune function, and emotional stability. Yet for the aging population, this foundation often begins to crumble due to physiological shifts that are frequently misunderstood or dismissed as an unavoidable consequence of getting older. To understand why we must turn to nature's pharmacy, and specifically to foods that can naturally enhance melatonin production, we must first embark on a deep exploration of the aging brain's sleep architecture and the specific hormonal dysfunctions that rob the elderly of deep, restorative slumber. The human body operates on a circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour cycle that acts as an internal master clock, orchestrated primarily by the suprachiasmatic nucleus located within the hypothalamus, which responds to light and darkness to regulate feelings of wakefulness and sleepiness. In a youthful body, this system functions with precision, triggering a robust release of melatonin from the pineal gland as the sun sets, signaling to every cell in the body that it is time to repair and regenerate. However, as we age, two significant biological events occur that disrupt this delicate symphony: the calcification of the pineal gland and the degradation of the suprachiasmatic nucleus's sensitivity to light cues. This calcification of the pineal gland is a critical factor that is often overlooked in general health discussions, yet it represents a fundamental barrier to quality sleep in the elderly because as calcium deposits accumulate on this tiny endocrine gland, its ability to synthesize and secrete melatonin is severely compromised. Melatonin is often referred to simplistically as the sleep hormone, but scientifically, it is the hormone of darkness, a powerful antioxidant and neuroprotector that does more than just induce drowsiness. It lowers the core body temperature and dictates the timing of sleep phases. When the pineal gland's output diminishes, sometimes dropping by as much as 70% in individuals over the age of 60 compared to young adults, the body loses its primary signal to shut down. This deficiency leads to a phenomenon known as phase advance, where seniors feel tired earlier in the evening but wake up in the extremely early hours of the morning, unable to return to sleep. Furthermore, the architecture of sleep itself changes, characterized by a significant reduction in slow-wave sleep, or deep sleep, which is the phase responsible for physical restoration and the clearing of metabolic waste product from the brain, including beta-amyloid plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. The reduction of deep sleep combined with lower melatonin levels creates a state of chronic, low-level sleep deprivation that accelerates aging, weakens the immune system, and increases the risk of cardiovascular events. Confronted with this biological reality, the immediate instinct for many is to reach for pharmaceutical interventions, specifically benzodiazepines or non-benzodiazepine sedative hypnotics, often commonly prescribed as sleeping pills. While these medications may induce unconsciousness, they do not induce natural sleep. From a neurological perspective, pharmaceutical sleep aids often act as central nervous system depressants that sedate the brain rather than guiding it through the natural cycling of REM and non-REM stages. For the elderly, the consequences of reliance on synthetic sleeping pills can be catastrophic, including a dramatically increased risk of falls and hip fractures due to morning grogginess, cognitive impairment that mimics dementia, and the development of tolerance, which requires higher doses to achieve the same effect. Moreover, these drugs do not address the root cause, which is the biochemical deficiency of melatonin and the precursors required to manufacture it. This brings us to the critical scientific pivot of our discussion. If the pineal gland is struggling to produce melatonin due to age-related calcification, can we bypass this deficit by introducing exogenous melatonin through dietary sources? The answer lies in the incredible biochemistry of food and the concept of nutritional precursors. The body manufactures melatonin through a specific biosynthetic pathway starting with the essential amino acid tryptophan. Tryptophan is hydroxylated to form 5-hydroxytryptophan, or 5-HTP, which is then decarboxylated to produce serotonin, a neurotransmitter associated with mood and relaxation. Finally, in the absence of light, enzymes in the pineal gland convert serotonin into melatonin. Therefore, the strategy for the elderly is not simply to sedate the brain, but to flood the system with the raw materials, tryptophan, and specific cofactors like vitamin B6 and magnesium, and to consume foods that contain bioidentical melatonin that can cross the blood-brain barrier. We're looking for foods that act as natural sleeping pills, not by depressing the nervous system, but by restoring the hormonal balance that time has eroded. This approach requires a shift in how we view our evening meals, moving away from eating for satiety alone and towards eating for functional neurochemistry. When we talk about doubling melatonin levels, we are referring to the measurable increase in serum melatonin concentration that occurs after consuming specific functional foods, an increase that has been validated in various clinical studies to improve sleep latency, which is the time it takes to fall asleep, and sleep efficiency, which is the percentage of time spent asleep while in bed. The challenge, however, lies in the fact that tryptophan is the least abundant amino acid in the standard diet, and it competes with other large neutral amino acids for transport across the blood-brain barrier. This means that simply eating protein-rich foods is not enough. One must understand the specific food matrices that enhance uptake. For instance, the presence of carbohydrates triggers insulin release, which clears competing amino acid from the bloodstream and allows tryptophan a free pass into the brain. Thus, the dietary intervention for senior sleep health is a precise science of selecting foods that naturally contain high levels of melatonin or its precursors and consuming them in a way that maximizes their bioavailability. As we prepare to delve into the specific 5 foods that possess these potent properties, it is essential to understand that we are attempting to manipulate the gut-brain axis. The vast majority of the body's serotonin, the precursor to melatonin, is actually produced in the gastrointestinal tract, not the brain. Consequently, the health of the gut microbiome in the elderly plays a pivotal role in sleep quality. Foods that are rich in fiber and prebiotics support the bacteria that assist in the synthesis of neurotransmitters. Therefore, the foods we will discuss are not isolated magic bullets, but are part of a systemic approach to health that lowers inflammation. Chronic inflammation, often elevated in older adults due to a condition known as inflammaging, suppresses the enzymes required to convert tryptophan to serotonin, diverting it instead down a pathway that produces neurotoxic compounds. By choosing foods that are both anti-inflammatory and rich in sleep-inducing compounds, we hit 2 birds with 1 stone. We dampen the inflammatory fire that keeps the body in a state of stress, and we provide the direct hormonal support needed for the pineal gland. This biochemical backdrop sets the stage for introducing specific dietary champions. We're looking for foods that have evolved complex phytochemical profiles that, by happy evolutionary coincidence, interact perfectly with human sleep receptors. The concept of food as medicine is often thrown around loosely, but in the context of chronobiology, the biology of time and internal clocks, it is rigorously accurate. The timing of nutrient intake is just as important as the nutrient itself. Eating these specific melatonin-boosting foods during the day might yield some antioxidant benefits, but consuming them in the specific window of 1 to 2 hours before bed aligns the dietary influx of hormones with the body's natural, albeit weakened, circadian rhythm. This synchronization acts as an amplifier. Even a calcified pineal gland can be supported if the circulating levels of melatonin in the blood are elevated through digestion. We are essentially supplementing the body's dwindling internal production with an external supply derived from plants. This is safer than synthetic supplements because the melatonin found in food is bound to other phytonutrients, ensuring a slower, more sustained release that mimics the natural secretion curve of a healthy pineal gland, rather than the sharp spike and crash often associated with pill-form supplements. Having established the physiological necessity of supporting the aging pineal gland and the dangers inherent in synthetic sedatives, we now turn our attention to the specific dietary interventions that serve as the cornerstone of our natural sleep strategy, identifying 5 specific foods that rigorous scientific analysis has elevated from mere sustenance to the status of functional medicine. These are not arbitrary selections, but are chosen based on their quantified concentrations of melatonin, tryptophan, serotonin, and the essential cofactors required for their metabolism. Beginning with the undisputed champion of natural sleep aids, the tart cherry, specifically the Montmorency variety. While sweet cherries are a delicious treat, they pale in comparison to the biochemical profile of their sour cousins, which have been the subject of numerous studies, including pivotal research conducted at the University of Rochester and Northumbria University, aimed at understanding their impact on insomnia. The magic of the tart cherry lies in its dual-action mechanism. It is one of the few food sources known to contain high levels of exogenous melatonin that is directly bioavailable to the human body, meaning that when you consume the juice or the fruit, you are essentially drinking a natural, lower-dose version of a melatonin supplement, but packaged within a matrix of powerful antioxidants known as anthocyanins. These anthocyanins are crucial because they slow the breakdown of the melatonin in the bloodstream, allowing it to remain active for a longer duration, thereby extending the sleep cycle and reducing the frequency of wake-ups in the middle of the night. In one significant randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, participants who consumed tart cherry juice concentrate saw significant increases in their urinary melatonin levels and, more importantly, an increase in total sleep time and sleep efficiency. For the elderly, whose sleep is often fragmented, the tart cherry offers a solution that addresses both the onset of sleep, helping you fall asleep faster, and the maintenance of sleep, preventing the early morning arousal that is so characteristic of age-related sleep decline. It acts as a circadian regulator, gently nudging the body's internal clock back into alignment without the groggy hangover effect associated with chemical sedatives, making it the first and perhaps most potent tool in our nutritional arsenal. Leaving the orchard and turning toward the ocean, we encounter our second nutritional powerhouse, which operates through a completely different but complementary biological pathway: fatty fish, specifically salmon, tuna, mackerel, and trout. While tart cherries provide direct melatonin, fatty fish provide the essential construction materials the brain requires to manufacture its own sleep hormones, specifically through the synergistic interaction between omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D. A vast majority of the senior population suffers from a subclinical deficiency in vitamin D due to reduced sun exposure and the skin's decreasing ability to synthesize it. Yet this vitamin is a critical transcription factor for the enzyme tryptophan hydroxylase 2. This enzyme is the rate-limiting step in the conversion of tryptophan into serotonin in the brain, and without adequate vitamin D, this conversion slows to a crawl, resulting in lower serotonin levels and, consequently, lower melatonin levels, since serotonin is the direct precursor. When we combine high levels of vitamin D with the omega-3 fatty acids EPA and DHA found in fatty fish, we see a profound effect on sleep architecture. Omega-3s are essential components of cell membranes, ensuring that the receptors in the brain remain sensitive and fluid, facilitating better communication between neurotransmitters. Studies published in the Journal of Sleep Medicine have highlighted that regular consumption of fatty fish, 3 times a week or more, is associated with better sleep quality and higher daytime functioning. This is not an immediate sedative effect like the tart cherry, but rather a long-term structural repair of the brain's sleep machinery. By consuming fatty fish for dinner, you're providing a heavy dose of healthy fats that satiate the appetite, preventing hunger pangs later in the night, while simultaneously flooding the bloodstream with the specific nutrients needed to optimize the pineal gland's biosynthetic capabilities. It is a foundational food that addresses the underlying inflammation and hormonal deficits that plague the aging brain. Transitioning from the sea to the earth, specifically to the world of nuts and seeds, we identify our third champion, The pistachio, often accompanied by walnuts and almonds, though pistachios deserve special recognition in the context of melatonin. Recent analytical studies measuring the melatonin content of various plant foods have yielded surprising results, suggesting that pistachios may contain significantly higher levels of melatonin per gram than many other fruits and vegetables, potentially rivaling or even exceeding the levels found in some supplements depending on the harvest and growing conditions. This discovery is a game-changer for those seeking a plant-based sleep aid, as a simple handful of pistachios consumed an hour before bed can provide a substantial physiological dose of the hormone. However, the value of nuts extends beyond melatonin alone. They are rich reservoirs of magnesium, a mineral that is often referred to as nature's tranquilizer. Magnesium plays a pivotal role in the regulation of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest branch of our autonomic nervous system that helps us relax. In the elderly, magnesium deficiency is rampant and is strongly linked to insomnia and restless leg syndrome, a condition that causes uncomfortable sensations in the legs and an irresistible urge to move them, which can severely disrupt sleep onset. By ensuring adequate magnesium intake through nuts like almonds and walnuts, we facilitate the physical relaxation of muscles and the quieting of the nervous system. Our fourth contender is perhaps the most surprising to many, a fruit often associated with breakfast rather than bedtime: the kiwi. This fuzzy, green-fleshed fruit has emerged in nutritional psychiatry research as a potent sleep superfood, most notably highlighted in a study conducted at Taipei Medical University. In this study, volunteers who consumed 2 kiwi fruits 1 hour before bedtime for 4 weeks experienced a significant reduction in sleep latency, the time it takes to fall asleep, by over 35%, and their total sleep time increased by over 13%. The mechanism behind this impressive result is believed to be twofold. Firstly, kiwis are exceptionally high in antioxidants and vitamin C, which help to combat systemic inflammation that can elevate cortisol levels and disrupt sleep. Secondly, and more importantly, kiwis contain a remarkably high concentration of serotonin. While serotonin in food cannot directly cross the blood-brain barrier to act as a neurotransmitter, the high folate content in kiwis helps facilitate the brain's own production of serotonin and improves the methylation processes required for neurotransmitter balance. Folate deficiency is another common issue in the geriatric population that is linked to insomnia and restless leg syndrome. By consuming kiwis, we are essentially providing a serotonin booster shot that primes the brain for the transition into sleep. Unlike heavy, starchy foods that might cause a blood sugar spike and crash, the fiber in kiwi ensures a slow, steady release of energy, preventing nocturnal hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, which can cause the release of adrenaline and wake a person up in a panic. The kiwi represents a light, refreshing, and scientifically validated option for those who want to improve their sleep efficiency without consuming a heavy meal before bed, utilizing the power of phytochemicals to modulate the brain's sleep centers. Finally, we arrive at the fifth and perhaps most traditional member of our list, a remedy that has been passed down through generations and is now vindicated by modern science: warm milk or dairy products. The image of a grandmother offering a glass of warm milk is grounded in the biochemistry of tryptophan and calcium. Milk is a rich source of tryptophan, the essential amino acid that serves as the starting block for serotonin and melatonin production. But as we noted in the introduction, tryptophan struggles to compete with other amino acids for entry into the brain. This is where the calcium in dairy plays a critical role. Calcium helps the brain use the tryptophan to manufacture melatonin. Research indicates that calcium levels in the body are higher during some of the deepest levels of sleep, such as the rapid eye movement, REM, phase, and disturbances in sleep may be related to the absence of calcium. But beyond the vitamins and minerals, milk contains bioactive peptides, specifically alpha-casazepine, which acts on the GABA receptors in the brain, the same receptors targeted by anti-anxiety medications like Valium, to induce a state of relaxation and stress reduction. This creates a mild sedative effect that lowers anxiety and prepares the body for rest. The warmth of the milk is also not to be underestimated. Consuming a warm beverage raises the internal body temperature slightly, which triggers a compensatory cooling mechanism in the body. This drop in body temperature mimics the natural thermal drop that happens as we fall asleep, signaling to the brain that it is time to shut down. Whether it's plain milk, yogurt, or a small amount of cheese, dairy provides a sustained release of protein, casein, that prevents hunger throughout the night, ensuring that the metabolic fires are kept low and steady, allowing for uninterrupted repair and regeneration. Synthesizing the power of these 5 foods: tart cherries, fatty fish, nuts, pistachios/almonds, kiwi, and dairy, we see a comprehensive nutritional strategy that attacks insomnia from every angle. We have the direct hormone replacement from tart cherries and pistachios, the structural repair and sensitization of receptor from fatty fish, the muscle relaxation and nervous system regulation for magnesium-rich nuts, the serotonin-boosting and folate-rich properties of kiwi, and the GABAergic, anxiety-reducing effects of dairy peptides. This is not about choosing just one. It is about understanding that different bodies may have different deficiencies. For one senior, the primary issue might be a magnesium deficiency causing restless legs, making almonds the cure. For another, it might be a calcified pineal gland requiring the direct melatonin boost from cherries. However, the true power lies in the integration of these foods into a consistent dietary pattern. It is important to note that the biochemical effects of these foods are not always immediate in the way a sleeping pill is. They function by building up the body's reserves and restoring balance over days and weeks. The dose matters as well. We are talking about therapeutic amounts, such as a full glass of tart cherry juice, a serving of salmon, or 2 whole kiwis, not just a garnish. Moreover, we must understand the chemical interactions between these foods and the rest of the diet. For example, the carbohydrates found in the kiwi or the natural sugars in the cherry juice can actually help the tryptophan from the milk or fish cross the blood-brain barrier. Insulin, released in response to carbohydrates, drives other amino acids into the muscle tissues, leaving tryptophan behind in the bloodstream with less competition, allowing it to enter the brain more easily. Therefore, a perfect bedtime snack might actually be a combination of these elements. Perhaps a small bowl of yogurt, dairy, topped with tart cherries and crushed walnuts. This creates a nutritional synergy where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We are essentially engineering a sleep cocktail using nothing but whole foods, bypassing the liver toxicity and dependence risks of pharmaceuticals. As we analyze these foods, it is also crucial to address the anti-nutrients or foods that should be avoided in this window to ensure these 5 powerhouses can do their job. Alcohol, for instance, might induce drowsiness initially, but it severely fragments sleep architecture and blocks REM sleep, countering the benefits of any melatonin-rich food. Similarly, caffeine has a half-life of up to 6 to 8 hours in the elderly, meaning a cup of tea at 4 p.m. can still be blocking adenosine receptors at 10 p.m., rendering the magnesium in your almonds less effective. High-sugar foods can cause a blood glucose spike that crashes hours later, triggering cortisol. Therefore, the efficacy of our natural sleeping pill foods is contingent upon a clean physiological environment. We are planting seeds of sleep in the garden of the body. If the soil is toxic with alcohol or caffeine, the seeds will not sprout. We have journeyed through the physiological landscape of the aging brain and identified the specific nutritional agents: tart cherries, fatty fish, pistachios, kiwis, and dairy that possess the chemical potency to restore the circadian rhythm. Yet possession of these foods is merely the first step in a more nuanced process, because the most potent medicine in the world is useless if it is not absorbed. For the senior population, the concept of bioavailability, the proportion of a nutrient that is digested, absorbed, and metabolized for normal bodily function, is the critical bridge between eating healthy and actually feeling the benefits, a bridge that often becomes unstable with age. As we age, our gastrointestinal physiology changes. The production of hydrochloric acid in the stomach often decreases, a condition known as hypochlorhydria, and the motility of the gut slows down, meaning that the breakdown of complex proteins and the extraction of minerals like magnesium become less efficient. Therefore, Simply chewing on a handful of hard almonds or eating a piece of tough fish might not yield the sleep-inducing results we desire if the digestive system cannot access the nutrients locked inside the food matrix. To transform these 5 foods into true, natural sleeping pills, we must apply a specific protocol of preparation and combination that respects the limitations of the aging gut while maximizing the delivery of melatonin and tryptophan to the brain. Let us begin with the preparation of nuts and seeds, specifically the walnuts and almonds we discussed for their magnesium and tryptophan content. While they are nutritional powerhouses, nuts contain phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors that can bind to minerals like magnesium and zinc, preventing their absorption in the small intestine, which is counterproductive when our goal is to sedate the nervous system with those very minerals. To circumvent this, we can employ the ancient technique of activation or soaking. By soaking raw walnuts or almonds in water for 6 to 8 hours, perhaps starting in the morning, we neutralize these anti-nutrients and soften the fibrous structure of the nut, making it significantly easier for a senior's digestive system to break down and increasing the bioavailability of the magnesium by a substantial margin. Furthermore, for those with dental issues or compromised chewing strength, blending these soaked nuts into a smooth paste or a sleep smoothie removes the burden of mechanical digestion from the stomach, presenting the nutrients in a pre-digested form that allows for rapid absorption into the bloodstream. This ensures that the magnesium hits the nervous system relatively quickly, relaxing the muscles in time for bed rather than sitting heavy in the stomach and causing indigestion. Similarly, the preparation of fatty fish requires a delicate touch to preserve the integrity of the omega-3 fatty acids, which are highly susceptible to oxidation when exposed to high heat. Frying a piece of salmon in vegetable oil not only destroys a portion of the delicate DHA and EPA, but also introduces inflammatory oxidized fats that can trigger an immune response, keeping the body in a state of alert rather than rest. The bio-optimized method for cooking our sleep-inducing fish is gentle steaming or baking at a low temperature, perhaps in a parchment packet to retain moisture. This preserves the molecular structure of the fatty acids and the vitamin D. Moreover, we must consider the pairing of these proteins. As we touched upon earlier, the tryptophan paradox dictates that protein alone is often insufficient to boost brain tryptophan levels because larger amino acids outcompete it for transport across the blood-brain barrier. To unlock the sleep-inducing power of the fish or dairy, we must pair it with a small, strategic amount of complex carbohydrate. This is not a license to indulge in high-sugar desserts, which would cause a blood sugar crash and a wake-up call from adrenaline later in the night. Instead, we look to the synergy of a small serving of complex carbs, perhaps a few tablespoons of brown rice with a salmon, or the natural sugars found in the kiwi fruit or tart cherry juice consumed alongside the protein source. This triggers a controlled release of insulin, which acts as a traffic controller, sweeping the competing amino acids into the muscle tissue and leaving the tryptophan with a clear, open highway into the brain, where it can be rapidly converted into serotonin and then melatonin. Timing is the next pillar of our protocol, and it is a variable that must be calibrated with precision. The common mistake is consuming these sleep aids immediately before closing one's eyes, which is a recipe for disaster in the elderly due to the weakening of the lower esophageal sphincter, the valve that keeps stomach acid from rising. Lying down with a full stomach, even one filled with healthy food, can trigger gastroesophageal reflux, GERD, causing heartburn that mimics heart pain and makes sleep impossible. The golden window for consuming our specific melatonin-boosting foods is approximately 90 minutes to 2 hours before the intended sleep time. This window serves 2 purposes. Physiologically, it allows enough time for gastric emptying, ensuring the stomach is relatively settled while the nutrients are entering peak circulation. Chronobiologically, it aligns with the natural dim light melatonin onset. If you drink tart cherry juice or eat 2 kiwis 2 hours before bed, the spike in exogenous melatonin coincides with the time your pineal gland, however calcified, is attempting to initiate its own production, creating a cumulative wave of sleep pressure that feels natural rather than forced. This timing also addresses the issue of nocturia, or the frequent need to urinate at night, which is a major sleep disruptor for seniors. By consuming the fluid-heavy components, like the tart cherry juice or warm milk, 2 hours before bed, the body has time to process the fluid and the individual can void the bladder before getting under the covers, minimizing the likelihood of a 2 a.m. trip to the bathroom. However, food does not exist in a vacuum, and the efficacy of this dietary strategy is heavily dependent on the environmental context in which it is consumed, specifically the management of light. We must remember that light is the primary Zeitgeber, or time giver for the human body, and the most potent suppressor of melatonin. You could eat all the tart cherries and pistachios in the world, but if you're doing so while sitting under bright LED floodlights or staring at the blue light-emitting screen of a tablet or television, you are chemically neutralizing the benefits of the food. The blue light hits the retina and sends a direct signal to the brain to halt melatonin production, effectively canceling out the dietary boost you just provided. Therefore, the natural sleeping pill protocol requires a synergistic environment. As you consume your evening sleep snack, the lights in the home should be dimmed to a warm, amber hue. This drop in light intensity works in tandem with the nutrients, signaling to the brain from both the outside, light, and the inside, nutrition, that the day is over. It is about creating a biological consensus within the body. When the gut senses the presence of melatonin-rich food and the eyes sense the absence of blue light, the signal to sleep becomes undeniable, overriding the fragmented alerts of a stressed or aging nervous system. We must also address the psychological component of this ritual. Insomnia in the elderly is often fueled by a condition known as psychophysiological insomnia, the fear of not sleeping. The bedroom becomes a battleground, and the evening meal becomes a countdown to the struggle. By formalizing the consumption of these 5 foods into a sleep ritual, we harness the power of the placebo effect, which is a very real neurobiological phenomenon. The act of peeling the kiwi, of warming the milk, of measuring the tart cherry juice, becomes a soothing, meditative practice that signals safety to the amygdala, the brain's fear center. We are shifting the mindset from taking a pill to knock me out to nourishing my body to let it rest. This shift in perspective reduces cortisol levels. Cortisol is the enemy of melatonin. They operate on a seesaw. When cortisol is high, melatonin is low. By reducing the stress and anxiety around sleep through a proactive, nurturing dietary ritual, we lower cortisol, which naturally allows our dietary melatonin to function more effectively. It is a virtuous cycle. Better nutrition leads to less stress, which leads to better absorption and utilization of that nutrition. Let us construct a practical menu of sleep to visualize how this comes together in a real-life scenario for a senior. An ideal evening might begin with a dinner of baked salmon, omega-3s and vitamin D, served with a side of steamed spinach, magnesium, and a small portion of sweet potato, complex carb for tryptophan transport. This meal provides the structural blocks. Then, 90 minutes before bed, we introduce the activator, a small bowl of yogurt, calcium, and soothing peptides, topped with crushed, soaked walnuts, tryptophan, and a drizzle of tart cherry concentrate, direct melatonin. Alternatively, for those who prefer a lighter option, the kiwi ritual involves slicing 2 kiwis and eating them slowly, perhaps accompanied by a small cup of chamomile tea, which, while not a melatonin source, acts synergistically to calm the gut. These are not just meals. They are therapeutic interventions designed to manipulate neurotransmitters. It is important to emphasize consistency here. Unlike a synthetic sleeping pill that forces unconsciousness within 30 minutes, nutritional therapy is cumulative. It may take 3 to 4 weeks of consistently consuming tart cherry juice or eating kiwis nightly to saturate the body's tissues and reset the circadian rhythm fully. The user must be patient and trust the biochemistry, understanding that they are rebuilding a system that has been degrading for years. Furthermore, we must consider the holistic lifestyle that supports this diet. Hydration throughout the day is crucial because dehydration can lead to higher core body temperature and hot flashes that disrupt sleep. but fluid intake should be tapered off in the evening. Daily movement is also a key catalyst. A sedentary body does not build up enough sleep pressure, adenosine, to fall asleep easily. A moderate walk in the morning sunlight serves two functions. The physical activity burns energy, and the exposure to bright morning light sets the timer for the release of melatonin 12 to 14 hours later. Thus, the morning walk prepares the pineal gland for the evening tart cherry juice. They are two ends of the same string. If you pull the string in the morning with light, the evening food works better. This is the interconnectedness of chronobiology. We're not treating a symptom, we are treating a rhythm. As we conclude this extensive exploration into the world of natural sleep aids, we must recognize the profound empowerment that comes with this knowledge. For too long, the narrative around aging and sleep has been one of resignation. That poor sleep is just part of getting older, or one of dependence on pharmaceutical interventions that rob seniors of their cognitive clarity and balance. The science we have unpacked reveals a third path, a path of nutritional sovereignty. By understanding the molecular composition of Montmorency cherries, the fatty acid profile of salmon, the mineral density of pistachios, the serotonin pathways of kiwi, and the peptide sequences of dairy, we unlock a pharmacy within our own kitchens. These foods are safe, they are effective, and they come with side effects that include better heart health, stronger bones, and improved cognitive function, a stark contrast to the side effects of sedatives. The implementation of this knowledge requires no prescription, only a trip to the grocery store and a commitment to self-care. It invites the senior individual to reconnect with their body, to listen to its signals, and to feed it with intention. The natural sleeping pill is not a single magic bullet, but a lifestyle of respect for the biology of the human organism. It is a testament to the fact that even as we age, our bodies remain responsive to the right inputs. We can retrain our circadian rhythms. We can replenish our depleted hormonal reserves. And we can reclaim the deep, restorative sleep that is the birthright of every human being, regardless of age. So, tonight, as the sun sets and the shadows lengthen, do not reach for the medicine cabinet. Instead, open the refrigerator. Pour the juice, peel the fruit, savor the nuts. You're not just eating. You're sending a chemical love letter to your brain, telling it that the day is done, safety is established, and it's time to drift into the healing embrace of sleep. This is the power of food. This is the science of rest, and it is waiting for you to take the first bite.